Hey everybody, this is Doug Kenny along with Justin from Stories from Motorsports, and today we have Brayton Laster with us. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, pretty good. Thank you guys for bringing me on here. Really excited to chit chat with you guys and talk a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Where are you
Yeah,
originally from?
I am from the lovely corn state of Indiana, Greenwood, Indiana to be exact. We're just south of Indianapolis here, so obviously, Indianapolis, Indiana has a lot of rich racing heritage. So, if you're not in like the Charlotte area, you're like in the Indianapolis area. So, I'm in a pretty good spot, I feel like.
Definitely. Have you ever been to the Indy 500?
I have actually only once though, and that was last year's running. Which I've lived in Indianapolis area for my whole life. And I feel kind of bad saying I've been involved with racing my whole life and only been in the 500 once. So yeah.
What was your reaction to the finish of last year with Marcus Ericsson?
Oh, it was close. I know there were a couple laps. I forget he was running second, but like he was like he'd close up and then kind of pull away. And that was the first time I've actually watched Indy cars in person race, and those things are wicked. I mean, they're going like 220, 230 miles an hour, and they're just screaming down like through into the corner like "Meow!" It's like a jet fighter. I'm like, this is so cool.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
Brayden, my first question, do you have any desire to go IndyCar racing now that you watch the Indy 500?
I mean, growing up around Indianapolis, I'd always like watch on TV, but seeing those cars in person, I've never really been a big open wheel guy per se. I mean, I've run some open wheel like stock car stuff, like an outlaw modified late model here around here. It's a figure eight class that we run. They're like open wheels. But other than that, I've never really done anything open wheel. I've always wanted to try it, but that's never really been an end goal. I feel like, although a career path can change very quickly, and if I feel like it's more likely I make it that route, then I'd pursue that route. But for now, I'm pretty content where I'm at, and the end game, while unlikely, is like a full time in the top three national series.
NASCAR related, right?
Yes, yes.
What are your hopes for NASCAR?
I mean, I'm content where I'm at running ARCA part time because I never thought I'd really make it to this level. Even, I only run the two super speedway races, which Daytona and Talladega are two tracks that I don't want to say were figments of my imagination, but I never thought I'd get to see a race there in person, let alone actually racing there in person. And so this past year, kind of moving up into the ARCA Menard series has been this crazy range of emotions. And then I made my my truck debut at Knoxville last year as well. And that was, I never thought I'd go to watch a truck race in person. I never thought I'd get to see one in person, and or even sit in one. And then here I am, at Knoxville, starting 31st on the grid, last car to make it in without provisional. And I'm like, this is so cool. And I just sat there, I took it all in, and I I always said if I made this up, I'd be content. I could retire now and be happy, but now that I've got like a little taste, like just a little taste of what it's like, I'm like, I'm gonna shoot for the top. I feel like if I can, I don't know if I can make it, but I'm gonna shoot for there because there's no point shooting if I don't want to try to make it. And at least run a cup race down the road, like a Bristol dirt or like a road course, or Talladega or Daytona. It'd be really cool to try. I don't think I'd ever actually make it full time in the Cup Series, but I'd like to try see how far we make it.
For sure.
Well,
What
you
made you
heard it
get
right
into
here.
racing in the first place?
My dad, it's definitely a family thing for me. His dad, so my grandpa started taking him to races, like short track races around Indy in the 80s or the 70s and the 80s when he was a kid. And towards his later teen years, he started actually working on race cars. About the time the 90s came around, he actually started owning race cars, various, Hornet front wheel drive cars, street stock bomber divisions. And he had a figure eight car that he owned, and then he began racing himself in the early 2000s and whatnot. And so it was always kind of a family thing for me. We always have a car in the garage. I'd be out there with like a hammer, 2 or 3 years old, just beating the car up with a hammer because that's all I knew how to do. And I just kind of grew up around that atmosphere. And when I was 7 years old, I hopped in a go-kart for the first time, and the rest is history.
Nice. Fire away, Justin.
So you excuse me, are you going to Daytona to race ARCA here in a couple weeks?
Yes, February 18th is the race, the Daytona ARCA 200. It's the Saturday right before the Daytona 500. It's the day of the Xfinity race. So we're returning with Mullins Racing. It's a team that I ran with last year. They're a very small family team. They have about 5-6 cars total. They're from Fredericksburg, Virginia, and they typically only run 4 or 5 races out of the 20 or so race schedule. They typically get both super speedway races and a couple short tracks, all depending on funding and whatnot. But they're a very small team. William Mullins, or Big Willie, as we call him, is the team owner, and I'm very grateful to be driving for him. Him and his wife Dinah, they're awesome people, and I'm definitely grateful to have been paired up with them. Daytona last year was the first time they actually took 2 cars down for the actual race. So that was kind of a big learning curve for me because it was my first race in ARCA. And it was their first major race with 2 cars, and it worked out really well. We ended up 13th and 14th. So we got a lot of experience. And then at Talladega, we'll also be returning to Talladega this year, the April or the spring race. As of now, that's the plan at least. We go and here's the thing about a small team. If we go and I get wrecked, I barrel roll down the back stretch and destroy the car and land on Lake Lloyd. Now I doubt I go to Talladega because we don't have a backup. If I wreck in practice, I'm not racing that weekend. So it's kind of a small team thing, but I kind of like the small team atmosphere.
Got it. What's your favorite
Nice.
small team in NASCAR?
I really like Front Row. I don't know if we can call them a smaller team, but I really like Front Row because they just kind of been around for a long time, and that they went through a lot of, at least on the Cup side, a lot of ups and downs with drivers. And when Chris Buescher got the Pocono win in 2016, the fog race, I thought that was just so cool that like a small team like this and like a up and coming driver kind of backed his way into this win. I just thought that was so cool and so rewarding for a small team. And then they won the 500 a couple years ago with McDowell, and that was just so cool. And then they got Mike Harmon next Xfinity Series. That's like a blue collar type of guy. Mike he's down to earth. He's realistic, and you talk with him, and he'll be honest with you. He'll shoot straight when you're talking to him. Then you got guys in the truck series. A lot of like family teams per se in the ARCA Menard series and the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series nowadays, and it's definitely a real cool atmosphere. And it's definitely different than teams that are just there for business, and you kind of get that vibe in the garage. So it's rough, but going back and forth. But I definitely like the small team vibe though.